Okay, who raised their hand? Who has a corgi? I didn't see it. Okay.
There's a corgi.
Awesome. All right, so today we're going to talk about maximizing community growth by leveraging your people's expertise. So we're looking at Atlassian specifically today. So with me, I have Monique. So good. So we're going to talk about the Atlassian community first to give you some context. Next, we're going to talk through customers and advocates and how you work with them to foster community growth. And then we'll dive into the details on rallying your organization around your community as well. So let's get started here. Yeah. So with the Atlassian community, let me go ahead and move the slide forward a little bit.
That's us again.
Of course, I didn't forgot to move the slides here. All right, so let's discover the Atlassian community. So describe the Atlassian community. What are your primary goals for the Atlassian community?
Okay, well, this is a great question, and it's good to kind of set the scene on this because I'm the head of the online community at Atlassian. However, we consider at Atlassian the community to be way more than like one forum, one destination. We've got an amazing events program that's community-led, led by my colleagues Darlene and Cassie and their team. And they facilitate meetings that are run by our community that are literally happening every day of the year. We run like 700 or more events per year. So there's the events program, there's the online forums and Q&A. We have community groups there. We've recently merged with the training and learning team, so we are starting to bring in learning content. So the community is a really big ecosystem. But the goal of all of these interactions and engagements is really the same, which is to turn users of our products into champions of our products. And that's always been our North Star. And yeah, that's how we approach community.
Awesome. For some additional context, what other teams are involved in the community? So not just the community team, but
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's handy to have this on the slide because I didn't know the numbers, and it's really hard to count because our team that ladders up to Stephanie Grice, who you may have seen talk yesterday, is about 54 people. And it's a big team, but that doesn't include our community designers, our community developer team, our community support team, the brand team who creates artwork and visuals for us, analysts, UX folks. So it's really hard to put a number on it. And we have these little dotted lines that connect all the way, all around Atlassian, which was a journey to get to this point, but we are at this point now, and it's very exciting.
Definitely. Let's take a look at some statistics from the Atlassian community. So in the past year, we have 19 million unique visitors, 272,000 posts, 55,000 questions, 30,000 group joins, and probably the most impressive is 390 super users. So let's talk about the 390 super users. Like, yes. How did that grow over time in general? Like, what was it 5 years ago versus now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we originally in the online community had a kind of a core group when we launched in 2017, a core group of folks who were really focused on answering questions on the community. At the same time, in a different area of the company, we had this events program where folks were running community-led events, and that grew really organically out of just, people just deciding they wanted to meet together and talk about Jira, which is one of our products. So we combined those two groups together, and then it started to become this situation where there was this flow between them, right? Like folks who were active on the online community were like, oh, actually, I'm interested in helping to host events. And people hosting events were like, oh, this online community is great. And we have a Slack channel for these folks that also I really do think of it as part of our community, even though it's not public, it's this private Slack channel, but it's really fabulous. And our super users are amazing. One of them is actually in the audience here cheering for me because she's amazing. Yeah, there she is. But yeah, they're the heart and soul of our community for sure.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about your community strategy. So how did the community start? Talk a little bit about the history of the Atlassian community.
So I joined Atlassian in 2017 right before we moved from a homegrown platform onto Khoros. And so originally it was really about product Q&A, and it was questions and answers about Jira, Confluence, and all of our other products. And then what happened was the executives and the CEOs and the founders all the way up to the top decided they wanted to really invest in community because they could see the power of the community. They knew these folks. They saw them popping up everywhere to hold these events. They saw them answering all these questions online. And they decided they wanted to invest in the community experience. So we moved to a new platform. And that's when things started to expand and grow beyond that original product Q&A that a lot of people are familiar with a community of practice. And we still have a huge Q&A component of our community, of course, our online community. But then, we also expanded to groups, the group hubs on Khoros, where people are talking about not just, we have some product-focused ones, like I'm new to Jira. I'm going to join the new to Jira group and learn about some of the basics of, Jira. But I also want to join the Agile group, and I want to talk about Agile practices and teamwork, not necessarily with our products, but, Agile in general. I want to talk about diversity in tech. I want to talk about teamwork and team plays. So it started to expand, and it started to really grow organically. So that has been a really amazing thing to see. And part of it is driven by that top-down community support that we've had from our executives. They show up every year at our conference to meet our community leaders in person, hand out awards, let them sit and talk to the CEOs. And that's something that is really special, I think, for our community, is to have that.
Absolutely.
Leaders or the executives bought in.
Yeah, totally. So, and given that your execs have been bought in pretty much from day one, and there's been a huge focus on community at Atlassian, how did the company buy-in evolve at other levels? So I would say in other teams. We'll talk about more of this later, but I want to kind of talk about it in a precursor sense.
Yes, let me see. Yeah, so I think, one of the challenges at the beginning was helping the product teams understand what community could do for them. So we had this executive support, but then we had very busy product teams who were like, I want to ship features for my product. My executive and leadership, they care about, me driving these other metrics. What's community? I've never heard of you. So trying to remind them we existed was a challenge. Part of it was just that internal advocacy piece and that storytelling piece of, community is here. We're doing great things. We have these amazing folks that we can tap into, and it's worth your time. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, but convincing our product teams that it was worth investing in community because it could ladder up to the goals that they cared about.
Yep.
And I think storytelling is what really got us there.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk about customers and advocates and the focus on your customers and advocates. So,
favorites.
So let's dive in. Given that you had a homegrown community to start with, how did you identify your active users and work with them early on? And then generally, how did it evolve from there?
Yeah, it was actually a bumpy beginning, I think, from the online side for sure. When we launched the community, we didn't really, I think, plan it as well as we could have because we were not listening to what our users were telling us. We were in kind of the beta phase. We launched a little too early without having the right feature parity with our previous platform. And we didn't include some of our key folks in our leader program. So that was a little bit of a little bumpy ride at the beginning. But then over time, what happened was we decided, or we reinforced the idea that really listening to the users is important. So we instituted a community advisory board where we meet every month, and there's representatives from different areas of our program, events leaders, solutions partners, online leaders, and we all get together, and that gives us kind of this two-way dialogue, right? They have direct access to Atlassian teams. They can raise issues, ask questions, and then at the same time, we can get their feedback on things. It's like a little built-in focus group. Like if we have something that we're proposing or we want to share, they'll poke holes in it and they'll say, oh, this won't work because of X, Y, and Z. So that's really a way to give them a voice on the team and make them kind of an extension of the team, which we feel that they are anyway. But that really helped us. And then, to your point earlier, we did identify folks at the very beginning who were answering questions. And there are people who've been here since that very beginning and who've answered, we had someone recently cross the threshold of answering 50,000 questions on our forum.
Wow.
Which is like absolutely insane. When we show metrics, sometimes we have to just exclude him, and we're like, this is completely skewing the data.
Does he have his own role? You just like exclude him?
Yeah, exactly. Or like one person will go on vacation, and it was like our answer rate dropped, and I'm like, it's just because he's on vacation right now. But as the program has grown, we definitely have more. But at the beginning, it really was like this core group of maybe 20 or 30 folks. But yeah, it grew over time.
Okay, basic question, which I didn't prep you for, but if you know.
Okay.
So how long has that user been on the community?
He has been, we recently had a little thread where we were talking about what's the first time you interacted with an Atlassian product. And he said 2004, which is we barely had a company. I think we had Jira. And he's been a mega fan since day one practically. So yeah, a long time.
Great. That is so great. Let's talk about your Community Leaders Program.
Yay!
This is the part I've been waiting for. So tell us about it, how you manage it, and the impact that they've had on your community.
Absolutely. So our community leaders are amazing. Brittany is I'm one and I'm videotaping to hear what you say about me. But I'm not just saying this because she's here. So the community leaders answer about 40% of our questions on our community. We have a big community, lots of products, high volume. So that represents a lot of questions that they answer every day. And then the rest of the community answers, the rising star level of our community answers another 30% of our questions. So the community is really community run. But the leaders go above and beyond, right? They will develop initiatives on the community. They will, one of them wrote a quiz for a learning thing we were doing. One made a video based on Confluence shortcuts when I, pinged him and was like, hey, can you make a random video for me? Sure. And then I love this slide because one of our community leaders decided she was going to start cross-stitching our badges. So these are actually the badges that we have in our gamification program that she crossed. And I commissioned her to do one for the community manager badge because it's a little cute little coffee cup. I have it up in my office. It's very adorable. So they are angels from above, and I love them. And they're wonderful.
That's great. It's so great. Let's talk about, what are your thoughts on community leader motivations? What motivates them in community? What keeps them coming back? We could talk about extrinsic motivators, intrinsic motivators. What are your thoughts?
I love talking about this because we do survey our leaders. So we do try to get a pulse on what's valuable to them. And we try to, a former colleague, Erica Moss, would always put it such a great way that we're trying to reflect the value back to them that they give to us. And I think another speaker earlier today was even talking about that sort of symbiotic relationship between you and these folks. So, intrinsic motivation is definitely there. Mr. 50,000 Answers does talk about how he's been using our product since 2004. He's like, I still learn so much from being on the community and answering questions. We hear, the community has given me so much over the years, I want to give back to the community. So there is that level of I'm part of this and I want to help and I want to give back. We also have VIP experiences that we give them, like I was saying, at our annual conference. They get front row seats at the keynotes. They get a special day where we celebrate them. They get awards. They get to meet our C-suite. They get to take pictures with our founders and all that good stuff. They get exclusive swag. Brittany has a backpack she can show you later. They get little pins to commemorate every year that they've been part of the program. So we have lots of exclusive swag. Certifications and career building has been really motivating, and I was actually surprised that ranked really highly in our latest surveys. So what we do is, if you are a community leader, then you want to build your career, right? And then we give you free certification vouchers for free certifications. So that, especially people early or mid-career, is really valuable for them to have that. And so. Yes, and then we have a rewards and reputations program, our Khoros program. And so that has added a really fun, competitive element to it. We've got a quarterly leaderboard, so it resets every quarter so you can compete. Nick is Mr. 50,000, but he's fourth this quarter, so he should watch his back. And then we'll do little surprise and delight moments we always shout out the top of each quarter, but sometimes it's and this quarter we're giving out prizes, and Then one thing that I also really love is Brant, who's on the screen. Once we were like, you've won a Visa gift card, and he said, I'd rather you just donate the money to my local food bank. And I was like, that's so sweet, that warms my heart. And then we decided, like, okay, well, if people resonate with like philanthropy, let's try that. And that's when we started doing Likes for Trees. And the past 2 years, our community as a whole has planted 60,000 trees with the Eden Reforestation projects all over the world. They get to vote, they get to vote on where they plant them. And it's been this really fun, like, they like things or they RSVP to an event and then that plants a tree. So there's all these fun, like, threads full of spamming tree gifts and, but also people discovering new parts of the community as part of that. So one thing we get out of it is that we hear, oh, like, I didn't even know this group existed and I thought it was really interesting. I was just going to look for random things to like and I found this thing. So that's been really great to see. And it kind of reinforces, like, kind of going back to the very first thing, which is that it's not always about what's in it for me. It's also about giving back in various ways. And of course, everybody has different motivations and we try to give a range of rewards. But yeah, those are some of them.
Absolutely. So many great examples, and you can see the impact just in the analytics here. The amount of unanswered questions and the amount of questions that community leaders have answered is just astronomical. What's the time frame for this? It's the month of July?
I think, well, no, this is looking like, the little one at the end where it says 45%, that's the month of July. Yeah, so, but this breakdown has been pretty steady since the very beginning of the community, which has always made me really happy because this mix, I think, is very healthy. We're always going to have a small percentage of unanswered or unanswerable questions. We've got community leaders and the rest of the community answering really the vast majority. Atlassian staff, I love to see this because these are not folks whose job is community. These are people who we've internally motivated to come and like participate and answer questions. Like, I'm a Bitbucket engineer, so I can go answer some Bitbucket questions, and that's great. And that tiny little bar at the bottom is our community support team, which you would think, and in a lot of companies, those are the people answering the questions. But in our community, they're handling escalations, they're handling questions about, where you're required to see their billing history or, things that can't actually be handled by the rest of the community. And so yeah, I love this breakdown because I really do think it's very healthy and it's also very stable and steady over the years. It's been this.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the other side of the coin, the rallying support from the organization. All right, so we talked about this a little bit earlier in terms of getting buy-in from execs, which Atlassian fortunately has the benefit of having day one support from executives. So what was your approach in terms of getting buy-in from different stakeholders at Atlassian?
Yeah, so this is a great example. So we talked about kind of storytelling. And this was one where we worked recently, as you can see fairly recently, with our DevOps community group. And they ran a campaign called Plug into Jira. And so our group had been, growing steadily. And then we started Plug into Jira, and then we got this kind of graph, like very higher growth. And so this kind of gamification piece of it, in this case, we gamified this event, and it caused this community growth. One of my colleagues, Janice, sitting right there, helped to do an analysis to prove that when we add a gamification component to a group, it increases the growth rate from 9% on average to 116% on average. So we were able to really prove, like, okay, this is awesome. So I made a chart like this that's just blank, and it says, your metric here. And I blasted it out to our product teams, and I was like, look, we can help you. So, so that storytelling piece, and you have to keep telling the stories because, as you know, people churn. We've all had that kind of heartbreaking of like, this person on this product team really gets it. They're so good. They're doing all the things on community. Oh, you're leaving the company. Okay, and then there's nobody to do it. So the more you can work with a team to the point where community is really integrated into the go-to-market movement of that team, then once you reach that point, and it's hard, but once you reach that point, when people churn, you're still part of it, and you can keep selling it to them. And also having those executives from the top down remind them, like, hey, attend a community event, go look at the platform, try doing a challenge. It'll be really fun, and it works for other teams. And as they hear about the successes of other teams, then they want to kind of get on the bandwagon. And so I mean, I've been there since the very beginning, and there's really been a transformation from people like having to chase people down, like, please work with us, to people coming to us and us sending us to our service desk that we have now, and like, yes, get in line, we're going to help you, but there's other people too. So that storytelling piece and having your executives remind them is, crucial.
Yep, absolutely. So which teams at Atlassian, and you could pick a couple, do you find community the most valuable?
I think it's definitely, a couple of teams. One is our user research team. They find they're able to get a lot of good information and signals from community. They also can sometimes post and say, like, if you want to fill in a survey about this product, and they can find people who are engaged in the product and interested in giving the survey. But also product and product marketing teams, like I said, that their go-to-market strategy, we can really boost the signal with our community products or projects. And it's not just like things happening on the platform. Like I said, we've got a whole ecosystem. So we can encourage people to like go and post about this on your LinkedIn and create that ripple effect where it's not just, everything is happening in one spot. It's people are posting on their own channels. People are sharing, I made a YouTube video and here I'm linking to it and all that kind of stuff. So marketing has been a really good partner for us, and they run some of these fun projects. This month is Apptoberfest, where we're talking about apps that we build on top of our products, and we've done that every year, so the ecosystem team has been leaning into that. Lots of teams. There's really a lot of things that can be done, I think.
Yep. You mentioned earlier you gamify employees as well. Is there any other tactics that you want to mention, or did we cover it?
No, I think gamifying employees is for us, I think a bit of an untapped opportunity. So before COVID, we did a really fun thing called the Golden Ticket Contest, where for a couple of months, we encouraged Atlassians to participate on community in various ways. And the top 10, based on point, every week we had a leaderboard, and all this was done internally. The top 10 folks got a candy bar, and one of them had the golden ticket in it. And that won you a trip to our big event, and they got to have that same kind of VIP experience that community leaders have, which is something even internal folks at Atlassian, a lot of them, their role does not allow them to come to the event. They've never met the founders, that kind of thing. So that was really fun, but that was we kind of stopped that after COVID was like, we can't really fly you to the thing anymore, and travel restrictions and all that stuff. But we have a separate Atlassian-only leaderboard. We do give a little shout out every quarter, but I think that area, especially as the company scales, is a big area of opportunity we could lean into even more.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Final question on this part. What do you feel is the biggest challenge that you've had in rallying the organization?
Yeah, it's definitely, what I was speaking about earlier with that, people churning off and then trying to get the traction with the teams. We haven't always figured it out with every product. I think, I was talking earlier with some folks about, the Trello, our Trello product teams are not as engaged as we would love them to be. So like, how are we going to work with them? But then like the Confluence team has always been really a huge supporter of community. So there's different teams who are going to approach it in different ways. And, we're trying to make sure that they're reminded to do it. But people are very busy, and they have their own metrics, and they have their own OKRs and their KPIs that they're trying to work with. So one of the best things we can do is really show, like, we can impact your metric. Like, the thing you're working on and you care about, we can help you get there. So, we think of ourselves as a service organization in that way, of that we're there to help them. We're not trying to get something to increase our own metrics. We're trying to tell their success stories.
Yep, speaking to their success. I
exactly.
love it. All right, so the final part here is community on the horizon. So, at Khoros, we have a new community upgrade and experience called Aurora, and we're really excited about bringing it to the market. But outside of Aurora and with Aurora, what excites you the most about the community in the future?
Right, so like kind of going back to the beginning, we think of community as this galaxy of interconnected experiences, right? Like I said, it's not one destination. And I think sitting in Rich's talk, I was like, yes, that's exactly right. Community everywhere, like that's part of it. So our gamification piece allows us to start pulling in actions from other platforms. So we have the online piece, the events. We're even trying to pull in some in-product actions. And as we're merging with our learning team, trying to pull in learning actions. So you can imagine a world where somebody is like, I'm going to take a class on Jira, then I'm going to go to the online community and join this group about Jira, and then I'm going to answer some questions about Jira, and then I'm going to go attend an event and talk about Jira. And it's this whole journey that they're on, right? So the thing about moving to the next generation of the Khoros platform, Aurora, is it will really help us build in some of those touch points and some of those, give us the extensibility to start pulling in stuff from across that ecosystem, and meeting people where they are, but also giving them, so that they're not like, I have to log into the training platform, and then I have to go log into the online community, and then I have to go log into the events program. So it's like a seamless experience. And so we're also being able to reward folks for like, I run a YouTube channel on Jira, or I have a newsletter about Trello. Brittany has one. And how we're able to reward them for that, and like, have a little feed, like here's a click, you can join this newsletter, and how we can make it a bit of a holistic experience and a hub, but not the one and only hub that you have to join. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Absolutely. So we likely won't have time for questions, but we have some parting advice for you. So what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to community managers looking to grow and support their community using both their advocacy and customers as well as their organization?
I feel like there's a slide for this, so I will not forget my 3 pieces of advice. It
Let
just
me know
says
when you're
top
ready.
3 pieces of advice. That's blank. Great. Here's one. Listen to your users. Lean on your users. I mean, I feel like our community leaders, as we've talked about, are amazing folks. They're willing to help you create content. They're willing to help you moderate your site. They're amazing, and they'll also give you really honest feedback. I mean, I feel like I can always go to them and say, what do you think about this? And they will sometimes tell me, Monique, that is a terrible idea, don't do that. And then sometimes they will praise me and say I'm awesome, which I like better, but both are very valuable and important. So that's one.
2.
Gamify wisely and make it fun. So gamification is, a huge passion of mine, and I could talk about it for a million hours. So I'll write a book about it someday. But gamify wisely, because it can turn into, there's the dark side to it, right? There's users who are like, I hate this, I don't want this, I find this stupid. Especially in a professional community, they're like, I just want to do this Jira automation, and I don't want these little bouncy balls and stars and points, right? So, but then also that even very, very simple gamification techniques actually really work, especially because there's going to be that core group of people who are really enthusiastic about it, and you can incentivize to do things that are like sharing on their social channels was a good example of like the ripple effect of gamification. So you can scale a small group of people to have a big impact.
Absolutely. And the last?
Internally, okay, so yeah, I mean, I would phrase this as never shut up about your community and the magic moments that you have. I think if you can, you want to have both data and like fun little examples of the data. So like I can say we've got 324 active community leaders on our site in September, and that's fabulous. And then I can show you those cute little cross stitches, and that's like this cute memorable thing. So I always try to put data, and then I always try to put little quotes, little moments, little happy magic things. And that resonates and is memorable to people. And then it makes people really realize community is not just a bunch of numbers. We have the data that you care about, the data your leadership might care about, but we also have the human element of it. And the community is that human element.
Thank you. All right. So that's it for us. Thank you for joining our session today. Thanks to Monique for talking to us about Atlassian. Really excited for the future of community. If you would like to ask us questions, feel free to come to the Khoros booth. We'll be over there here shortly. And yeah, thank you so much.